Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial. It's Olive here, and today's project is going to be an immersive one. It is for beginners, for intermediate, data professionals, and for the pro, because what I have today is a full data analyst portfolio project. Right from getting the data into SQL to analyzing it there in SQL, visualizing it in Power BI, and automating this report. So it is analysis, visualization, and automation. So it is a very interesting one. So if this is the first time of seeing me or hearing my voice, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Olive, and what I do here is to teach everything data. So you can check out the Power BI playlist and see what you'd like to learn from it. All right. And also, since you're seeing me for the first time, do not forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video, so YouTube algorithm will know that quite a number of people actually like this video and they will push it out there. Do not also forget to share this video if you have friends that would like to work on data analyst portfolio project or aspiring to become data analysts. This project will definitely help them. So do share it. And lastly, comment. If you have any question you want to ask me, do not forget to drop it in the comments. If you want me to work on something else, do not forget to drop it in the comments. This is a great portfolio project for you to present to recruiters, and I can't wait for you to try this out. Once you're done, you can tag me. I'm on LinkedIn, Olive Ezetendu. Tag me, let me see what you've been able to do, and I can drop comments on that as well. So I can't wait to start seeing you guys' project. So let us go and get this project started. Come on, guys. So this is what our customer table looks like. And as you can see, we have the customer ID, the name, the account number, the account type, gender, the date the account was opened, the product, and the state of residence. All right. So now let's just quickly take a look at the transaction table. And so this is the transaction table. We can see the transaction ID and the customer ID because we're going to be joining these tables using the customer ID. And so if you also want to learn joins, this is also a good place for you. Now look at everything we have. We have the transaction date, the transaction type, was it a debit transaction or a credit transaction, the amount, the channel they used, did they make this transaction through mobile app or web, or they used card, and the currency. So in this currency we'll have naira, pounds, and dollars. All right. Okay, so now we're done with this. I just wanted us to study the data a bit. So what we're working with is 20 customers and 500 transactions. That's what is in this data set. All right. So the first thing we're going to do now is to go back to our SQL, and we're just going to open a new query. So, we have to create a database right now, okay? So that's the first thing we'll do. Let me just comment that. So creating database is a really easy one. All you have to just do is write create database. And what is the name of the database you want to give it? So let's just give it bank projects, because I already have. So bank projects is what we're going to create this database at. And just use a semicolon and execute this, and you will see that your database will be created. So can you see command completed successfully? Now we have a database called bank projects. So now in order to use this bank project, in order to use this database, you can come here and say use. So you can just say use bank project. As you can see, it's here. So bank projects, we're just going to click that, and this is what we have. So now if we say use bank projects, just run it and execute, and you would see command completed successfully. So this place, this available databases side immediately changed to bank projects. All right. If you don't want to use the code, you can just easily delete that, and you can just come here, just click the arrow, and you're going to see all the databases you have, and you click on whichever one you want. Either way it works. If you don't want to come here, you can just write use bank projects. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is we want to create a schema. All right, so let's create a schema called banks. Create schema banks. All right, so let's just run this. Execute. Command has been successfully completed successfully. So now we have our schema. The next thing we want to do is we want to import our data sets, right? So that we can start doing what we want to do. Now, in order to import data sets, it's very easy. All you need to do is to come to the database that you're using. So let's just look for what they call it, bank projects. This is bank projects, not projects. So let's look for bank projects. All right, if it has not shown here, just refresh it so it shows. Okay. Okay, now we can see bank projects. And all you need to do is just right click here, come to your task, go to import flat file. All right, so now we can see this wizard is open. Click on next. You're going to be asked the location for the import. You browse on where your data set is. So I'm just going to go to where mine is. So I'll just get the customer table first. And this place, it gives you an opportunity to name your table, right? So I'm just going to name my table customer table, and the DBO, which is the schema I'm going to use. I'm not going to use DBO because DBO is the default one, but we created schema. We created a schema and I'm going to use what we created, which is banks. All right. So I'm just going to go to next. Oh, it's open on the Excel. That's why this error is here. So let's just close the tables that we've opened. Okay, so now let's click OK and go to next. So we can preview what our data set looks like. So we're just going to go to next. And now this place is also important because if you're working with real life data sets, you would want to be careful of the data type you're using for performance, for storage, for a lot of things. So we're not doing that now. We'll just go to next and we're going to go to finish. Now you can see success. Our data has been successfully inserted. Now we're just going to close this and go back to our project. And when we go to the table under our project, we're going to see our bank.customer. So this is the schema and this is the table. All right, let's go get our second data set, which is the transaction table, because we're going to do EDA with all of that. Okay, so we can see we have our customer table and our transaction table successfully inserted. The next thing we want to do now is we want to start, taking a look at what this table is about, wanting to see every single thing, although you've seen it in Excel, but let's see it in SQL. Select star. This star means all from. So what is the table name? Banks.customer. You know what? Let me just come here, copy this, Control C, come here, paste it. So this is our table name, right? Now we're just going to run this and see. Okay, so this is what our table looks like. Our customer table looks like, just as we saw in Excel. So let's just go do the same thing for our transaction table. Control C and paste it. Now let us go look at this transaction table. Now the next thing we want to do is to check the sum of our transactions. As you can see, transaction amount. So we want to know what the sum is. All right, so we can I'm just going to paste my code right here. We want to see the transaction type and the sum. That means we want to see it by credit and by debit. So what we did is we were selecting that column, that's the credit and debit column, as you can see here, and the name of the column is transaction type. We're selecting it and we're selecting transaction amount. Okay, but we are summing up this transaction amount and we are aliasing it as value. from the bank transaction, which is this table, and we are grouping by transaction type. Now, this group by any column in your select statement that has an aggregate function, right? Aggregate functions are sum, average, count, mean, max, all of those things are aggregate functions. So once your column in the select statement, once you have columns in the select statement that has this aggregate function, you have to group by the ones that don't have it. Do you understand? You have to group by the ones that don't have it. For example, if you have 10 column names here and just one, which is this transaction amount, has the aggregate function, you have to group by the remaining 9. So you have to put the remaining 9 columns here for your query to run. Okay, so we're just going to run this, and you can see all the credit transaction that has happened amounted to all of this amount, and the debit transaction amounted to all of this amount. But it does look like the debit transaction is more than the credit transaction. Okay, now we can see our sum by transaction type. So the next thing we want to see is total transaction by month and year. All right, so if you have taken a look at our table, you're going to see that our table consists of, let me execute this. You're going to see that our table consists of transaction days dating from 2022 to 2023. I think April 2022 to 2023. But let us just confirm that. Let's see the minimum date and the maximum date. So we're going to see select transaction, select minimum transaction date. From our transaction table. So, okay, you know what? This is the date, but let's name this very well as minimum mean dates, and we're going to name this as max dates. All right, so let's just see this. So you can see our minimum date is April 4, 2002, and our maximum date is August 29th, 2023. So this is actually the date range for this transaction data that we have right now. Now, we want to see the total transaction by month and year. For example, now April is going to occur twice because there is April 2002 and April 2003. That is why the year is important. All I'll do is write the select statement, and what are we selecting? We want to get the transaction date. So now we have the transaction date, so we have to format this date column. All right, so in order to do that, we're just going to use the format function, and we're going to put this in a bracket. So what are we formatting our date as? We're going to use a comma as well. We want to format it as the month, as month and year. Okay, we don't need the day, so we just want the month and the year. So it's just going to give us the cumulative of each month, in whatever year it falls in. So what we want is, we're just going to put a quote, and now we want the month, which is MMMM, right? That is if you want this to come out in words, like if you want it to come out as January, like January, okay, you're going to use these 4 M's. But if you want it to come as 01, you're going to use 2 M's, okay? But I'm going to show you the both of them, and we're just going to do this and use YYY. We're going to do this, we're just going to close the bracket, and we're going to alias this as date. So we're going to give it a comma, and the next thing we want to see is our transaction amount. Okay, so let's just copy this sum transaction amount as value, because that's actually what our next column will be. So now we have this. What is the next thing? Where are we calling this? Where are we calling this thing from? From our transactions table. So this is very important. I'm just going to copy this and paste because it's the same thing from our transaction table. And you can remember what I said here. Once you use an aggregate function, you want to group by that. You want to group by the other column that does not have an aggregate function. So in order to do that, we're just going to group by the transaction date. That means you're going to copy every single thing from here. Okay, so we're just going to copy that. And we're going to write our group by and paste that. Okay, so now let's see this. So now we can see April 2022, 2023. You can see August, you can see December and all of that. You can see all the dates. Okay, say you want to see just 2022. So where the transaction dates, let's just copy transaction dates and paste it right here. Okay, where transaction date is let's just say between January 1, 2022 and December 30, 2023, right? We don't really have anything. Where transaction date between 01, let's not forget to use our quotes, between 01 January, so JAN, normally is the first 3 characters, 2022, and 12 what do you call it, 31st December. So we're going to use the first 3 characters as well, 2022. Okay, so this is what we want to see. We want to see everything by 2022. So let's execute this and we can see all our months by 2022. So now I'm also going to show you something. So we can easily just comment this out since we don't want to see anything by 2022. So now let me run this first of all. Okay, this was what we had before, right? We want to know who the month that did the most value and just want to see them on top. Okay, so let's just see, because that's what stakeholders we even want to see as well. So DE, so we're just going to group by this. And we can see December 2022 did a lot. You can see one, I think this is like 1.8 or 18, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is like 18M. We can see April, followed by April 2022. Then we can see July 2023 did a lot. We can see March, so you can actually get insight from this particular query right here. So the next thing we want to do is we want to see transactions that happened 2023. So the idea behind this is, say you work in a financial institution, because this is a bank project, right? So you work in this bank and you're to send a daily report. Okay, so now you want to send a daily report to your team lead or your whatever stakeholder it is you have. You want to show them what happened on August 29th. Say you're in August 30 now. Okay, August 30, 2023. So you have to do a report for the previous day to show them, right? So the previous day happens to be August 29. So now the first thing you want to do is you want to even tell them, okay, oh, this is the transactions that happened the previous day. This is the sum of transaction, the sum of our credits, the sum of our debits, and our net profit. Count of customers that transacted on 2023 08 29. Okay, so let's see that. We're just going to write the select statement and we're going to select count. Remember, this is an aggregate function. We're going to select count customer ID and close the brackets. And this is supposed to be in small letter. So once we close the ID, we have to alias it. What are we aliasing it as? We're going to write alias customer count. So let's just leave it our customer count. and we're going to just use the comma, and we're going to also get what? The transaction date. Okay, so now we have these two things. The next thing we want to do is we want to count from a particular table. So what table are we counting from? Our start table, which is the transaction table. So let's just copy this and paste it right here. Now, the last thing we want to do, not the last thing, but the next thing we're going to do is, now we've selected this from this particular table. God, I did not put the from statement. Okay, from this particular table, you cannot just leave it like this. You have to put a where clause, right? So we're going to say where the transaction date is on that particular date we want to get, okay? So we're just going to write where transaction date is equal to, just put the equal to sign, go get your quotes, and you're going to say what? 2908 is August, so AUG is fine, and we're going to say 2023. You close your quote. Now we're almost there. The next thing you want to do is you want to group by, because remember I said if you use any aggregate function in your select statement, you have to group by the next or the other columns that don't have aggregate function. So group by what? The transaction table. So let's just copy that and paste it. Okay, so let us see how many people transacted in this small bank that has just 20 customers. Let's see how many people transacted. Oh, we have just 3 customer count. Okay, so this is what you want to first show your stakeholders. These are the number of people that transacted with us on this particular date. Now you can start saying this is the debit and the credit, right? So let me just rename this thing very well. Let's just say we are doing a daily report. Okay, so now let's get the debit transaction. So it's going to be debit transaction. So now to get debit transaction, we're just going to what? Select the transaction type and transaction date. So I'm just going to come here and get this select statement. I'm just going to copy all of this because we need everything actually. Okay, so we are selecting transaction type and we are summing up the transaction, okay? From this thing, from this table, then we are going to come get our where clause here, copy that. So we're selecting this where the date is on this particular date because this is our daily transaction, okay? And we're grouping by transaction type. So now let's just run this and see the credit and debit transaction that happened. Okay, look at the credit transaction, 665,000, and the debit transaction is 405,000. So guys, we want to get our net profit now. So what we can do is, there are 2 ways of getting the net profit. You can get that by using the subquery and CTE. CTE is called common table expressions, and I'm just going to show you how to do that. So first things first, let's use the subquery. The first thing we want to write is the select. We're going to select case when transaction type is equal to credit, then we want to get the transaction amount, else we want to get what? 0, and we're just going to end this expression. So what are we going to name this as? Let's name this as what? Total credit. The next thing we want to do here is just to put the sum, because we want to get the sum of the transaction amount that has credits. The sum of the transaction amount that is what? Credit. That's what we want to get. Now, we're also going to put a comma. We are going to come here and also write another one, but let's just copy this and paste it. So it's not going to be like, so we'll not have to write it again. So we'll just paste that. Now we're getting the transaction amount when the transaction type is what? Is debit. Okay, so when the transaction type is debit, we want to get transaction amount, and we are going to name it what? We're going to name it total debit, just as we did for this one. All right, we are almost done. Then where are we calling this from? We are calling it from our table. So let's just write our from. I'm just going to come here and copy the table name. So we're calling this from our transaction table, where, because remember this is a daily report, so we have to put the where clause to filter off, to filter the date. So where transaction date is equals to, we're still working with the 29th. Don't forget to put your quotes. 29th of August, 2023. Hi guys, so I wrote this code but I didn't know it wasn't recording. My apologies for that. So please take a pause and look at the query, and as promised, this query is for the to method, which is the subquery and the CTE. So please take a pause and just read the query. You definitely understand it. Thank you. We're just going to go visualize all of these things in Power BI so the stakeholders can understand better. So now we're in the Power BI interface. The next thing we want to do is to get our data, but now we're not importing any data. We want to connect straight from the Power BI so that when there are updates or changes in the data in the database, it can also reflect in Power BI. So in order to do that, we're just going to come to here, SQL Server, and you can see you're asked for your server, SQL Server database name. Okay, what you can do is to come back to SQL, come to connect, and just copy your server name here, just Control C. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my data and just paste this, and now my server name is there. You can decide to put the database name if you want. It's optional, but you can just do that. So this is our database, bank project. So let's just copy that and put. Okay, so now we have bank projects, but we don't want to import, as we said. We want to query directly. Okay, so we're just going to put direct query, and we're going to hit OK. So this will try to connect to our database in SQL. Please remove the bracket here. Make sure there are no brackets in this bank project. Okay, so let's just click OK. Now you can see this is asking us to use our current credentials, or if you want to create an alternate credential. We're just going to connect like that. And now we can preview our bank data. As you can see, this is what we have, right? And we can also look at our customer table. We can preview our customer table. So let's just load that in. Okay, so this has been loaded in. FYI, when you're working with direct query, you're not going to have any table view. So all you would have is report view and model view. Okay, so when you take a look at model view, you can see your bank data set and your customer data set, but you need to form or create a relationship, and what you can use to create that relationship is your customer ID. This is very important. This is very important so that you can get the best analysis. So I'm just going to drag this to customer ID here, and the relationship would be created. As you can see, we have created our relationship with the customer table and the transaction table. Okay, let's go back to our report view. Let's take a look at our data set. So a few things we want to do, but first let's just get a measure table so that we can just write any measures we want. So just name this measure table and load that. We want to build our daily report for the 29th of August, just as we did in our EDA in SQL. Okay, so now to do that, let's just come to our measures table here, hit your measures table and just come here. We are going to write a measure that is going to give us the sum of transaction amount on that particular day. Then we're going to write another one that will give us the credit, another one that will give us the debit, and then another one that will give us the net value, just as we did in our EDA. Okay, so now to start, let's just write the total sum. And for this total sum, oh god, this was a mistake. Let me start again. Then we're going to use in order to go down, press the shift and enter key. So we're going to use the SUMX function rather. So this is going to iterate all through to come down, and we're going to use the filter function in order to filter our date. So for the filter function, you're going to see the table name is required, and then the filter expression is required. Then our table name is bank transaction table. You're going to put a comma, and our filter expression is what? Bank transaction table transaction date. We are filtering the date, don't forget. So if this transaction date is equals to, we're just going to use the date function here, right? And it's going to provide us with the year, the month, and the day. So if it's equals to 2023, the month is what? 08, and the date is what? 29 for our report, right? We're going to cover that. We're going to close that bracket. We're just going to use another bracket to, cover up the filter function, and we're going to put equals to. So now what is our expression? Where do we want this SUMX to iterate through? We want it to iterate through the bank transaction amount. Okay, so we're just going to put our last bracket, and this is actually it. So what we're saying is that we want our date to be filtered to this particular date, sum all the transaction amount or the transactions that was made on this particular date. So that is just basically what this is saying. So let's hit enter to get our total sum. I'm going to delete these two things. Okay, so now we have our total sum. So let's just bring in our card here so we can visualize this. You're going to just drag your total sum here, and you can see what we got in transactions on that particular date, 29th of August, is 1.07 million. Okay, so now let's look at our credit transaction and our debit transaction. And Honestly, it's not so hard. Let us just go back to our total sum. So we're just going to copy this thing because we're also going to be filtering by that date. All right. So now let us create a new measure. So I'm just going to paste that measure that we wrote. But the only thing we're going to do now is to add another filter because we are filtering by date, and now we want to filter by the transaction type so that we're going to get the one that is debit and the one that is credit. So now what we're just going to do is we're going to bring this down a bit. So shift and enter. Okay, so the next thing we're going to filter by is the transaction type, as I said. So we're just going to write bank and the transaction type. Okay, and we're going to say if the transaction is equals to credit. This is case sensitive, so please make sure it is every single kind of case that you use. Okay, and the next thing we want to use is this, and that is all for our credit transaction. Now let's hit enter so we can visualize this. Oh, the name has been used, sorry. I am going to change that name. Let's say total credit. Hit enter. So the next thing we want to do is to get another card, right? Let's just put that here and get the total credits. And this is what our total credit is. Now to clean this up a bit, I'm just going to come here and reduce the auto to 1. So quickly, let's go copy all of this. It's not going to be hard anymore. Get a new measure. And we're just going to paste this, but the thing we're changing now is we're changing the debit. We're changing the credit to debit. And we're changing our name to total debits. Okay, so this is about it. Hit enter. And let us see what our total debit is. Can you see? This is what our total debit is. Okay. So I'm just going to hit here. So I make this thing 1 decimal place. Okay, so this is what we have now. The next thing is the net profit. The net profit is the difference between the total credit and the total debit. So that one is easy, just the way I said it is how we're going to write it. So let's just say net profit or net value, whatever it is. Total, you can see total credit, and just use the minus sign. Total debit. All right, and that's about that. Hit enter. Let's get another card. And now we can see every single thing that our stakeholders might want to see. Okay. All right, guys, so let's get our top two with positive influence and our top two with negative influence. That's basically what these two boxes are going to do for us. So what we're just going to do is we're going to come to the visual and let's just get a table. Okay, so let's fit this table in. All right, so now what do we want to see? We want to see the customer that has the highest, right? So let's get our customer name. We want to see the customer with the, let's look at the total sum. Then we're going to take a look at the total credit and the total debit. Also, the net profits. So if you notice, everything filtered by this particular date because that's what this measure is working with. If you remember, we filtered all these things by this particular date that we're working with. All right. So now this is it, but we're looking for the top positive. All right. So we don't need this minus. What we can do here, and also because our data set is small, what we can do here is just to come to the net profit here and filter this. Can you see this is filters? So come to the net profit here. Then you will say, show items when the value is, and I'm just going to say I want this to be filtered when the net value is greater than 0. And I'm going to apply this filter. So now we can see our top two. The customer with the minus sign is no longer here. So let's quickly format this. This title will be our top 10, top 2 by positive influence. So this is what we are looking for, top 2 customers with positive net value. Now let's go to the negative and see. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it, and I'm going to drag this here. So now that we're here, let us go and see our top 2. That's if we have up to top 2. So we're just going to go back to the net profits, and we're going to say show item when it is less than, the positive one we did when it's equals, when it is greater than. So this one we're going to be doing when it is less than 0. So we're just going to hit apply filter, and we can see this sign, right? So this is just top 1 because we had just 3 customers that transacted that day. So let us format this. Okay, so this is about it. The next thing we can do is just to format these things. So let's just try to do that together. Let's go to headings. Where is heading? Okay, column header. Let's just make that bigger. I'm going to turn off the totals. So now that I've formatted here, the next thing I'm going to do is just to hit this, and I'm just going to go to format painter and come here, so everything formats. That is the beauty of format painter. You don't have to do it twice. So let's just go remove our total, turn off the total. Okay, so I think this does look a bit better. The next thing we're going to do is just to write some notes for our stakeholders. We want to believe this is a daily report. That means you did something yesterday, right? So now you're going to check, was the transaction of yesterday more than the transaction of today? Okay, so let's say yesterday's transaction was 1.06, right? So we can just say the total sum increased from 1.06 M on 28 August 2023 to 1.07 M on 29th August 2023. So you can also decide to make this in a percentage that we saw a 1% increase from yesterday's total sum to today's total sum, from yesterday to today's total sum. So it depends on how you want to put it. Then you can also come down here and talk about the total credit. You can say, oh, the total credit reduced and the total debit increased. Do you understand? And then our net value increased or something like that. So those are the things you can actually write to just, be here. So let me just write that. So we've been able to write that down so that our stakeholders can see that. I'm just going to come and turn off, make this transparent. So it just blends in. All right. So this is our simple dashboard. This is like the highlight of what we analyzed, and this could be a report that a stakeholder wants to see. But I did not write net profit here. Let me write that. If you want, you can decide to customize this by putting a color here so that they will know that, oh, it was a decrease or an increase. So let's use red to show a decrease. Okay. Okay, and then let's use green to show increase. Hi guys, I know this looks a bit different now, so I went ahead to get the transaction volume, that is the number of people that transacted, and I actually changed this to total value, credit value, debit value, and net value. So when you want to do your dashboard, data storytelling is really important. How do you want your stakeholders to read your dashboard? Do you understand? It has to tell a story. So for this daily report now, we'll start by telling them these are the number of people that transacted on that particular day. This is the volume of the transaction from the three of them. This is the credit value from this transaction. This is the debit, and this is the net value. Then we'll tell our top two positive and our top negative. Then you decide to write all of these. So that is it about this dashboard. This is just a simple, straightforward dashboard. So in the next video, what I will be showing you here will be how to automate every single thing here, in the sense that, for example, this date that is being written here, 29/08/2023, we won't have to be manually changing it. We have to automate it in such a way that when it gets to the next day and it refreshes, it's going to change to the current day's date. All right, and we're going to also automate it in such a way that all these values will be changed to the current day's date. Right, we're also going to automate this total value increase. Every single thing we wrote manually here is going to be automated. Now everything will change by itself when it refreshes. So hi guys, welcome back. In this episode, I promised to make this dashboard really automated in the sense that you don't necessarily have to do anything to get the values updated. So what you have to do is probably just hit the refresh button, or we can decide to schedule a refresh post. Everything is going to be refreshed for you. All right. So for every report or dashboard you want to build, you want to understand the business side of it. Now, this is a banking data set, and in a bank, right, is usually yesterday's reports that is sent out today. Now, we're going to write about 15 measures just to get every single thing in check. The first thing we're going to change is the date. So in order to change the date, don't forget you have to come here in our measures table, and also I have created a date table already. If you don't know how to do this, I'm going to put the link in the description box below. Do check that out. Now we're just going to hit our measures table here and come here, and we're going to write a measure. So what we want to get now is the current date. That is today's date, which will be on this topic part. So today's date, what we're trying to get, we're using the today function to get to today's date, but we're formatting it now to get it in the date form and also in the day, month, and year sequence. So if we used it only as day, as today, if we're using the function only as today, look at how it's going to come out. Let's get a card. So we're just going to put the current date here. And as you can see, this date is coming out with time, right? It's coming out with the 12 o'clock, 12 a.m. So this is why we have to format this particular date and tell it how we want it to come out. So using the format function, as you can see, we'll just say we want it to come out as day, month, and year. And this will do the job for us. Voila, can you see it? Now this is what we're talking about. All right, so now we've been able to do this. We're just going to place this here, and today is actually the 19th of December 2023. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to create something we'll call previous business day. And this previous business day is important because of what I just explained, right? So let me show you people. For example, we're going to hit the measures table. We're going to write a new measure. I'm just going to paste my measure here. So in this new business day, we created a variable called the current day of the week, which is today. And this 2 here is the argument that says Monday will be 1, Tuesday will be 2, Wednesday will be 3. Because normally when we are counting, Sunday is first, right? So now we don't want Sunday to be first. We want Monday to be first. And if you count that, Monday is like the second. That's why we are putting that 2. So Monday will be 1, Tuesday will be 2, Wednesday will be 3, and that is what this argument 2 is talking about. Then we are saying we created another variable, days to subtract. Now, normally in banking data sets, as I explained earlier, I'm doing analysis for yesterday's data today as today's report, right? So the data set of Tuesday, any report I'm sending on Tuesday is the data set for Monday. Any report I'm sending on Wednesday is the data set for Tuesday. Thursday is the data set for Wednesday. Friday is the data set for Thursday. Now, when you want to send your data on Monday, you need the data set for Friday, right? We said for every Monday, we want the data for Friday. Tuesday, we want the data for Monday. Wednesday, we want the data for Tuesday. Thursday, we want the data for Wednesday. Friday, we want the data for Monday. We want the data for Thursday rather. So when we come back on Monday, we want the data for Friday, right? So now we said if the current day of the week is Monday, if the current day of the week is this Monday, we are telling the machine to deduct 3 days in order to get to Friday. So we're going to deduct Monday, Sunday, and Saturday in order to get to Friday. This is what this particular formula is saying. Deduct 3 days, right, to get to Friday, and else keep deducting 1 day. So if that day is not Monday, deduct only 1 day. So if it's Tuesday, deduct 1 day to get Monday. If it's Wednesday, you deduct only 1 day to get Tuesday. If it's Thursday, subtract 1 day to get Wednesday. If it's Friday, subtract 1 day to get Thursday. But once it's Monday, subtract 3 days to get Friday. That is exactly what this formula is talking about. Now we're asking it to return the previous date. Now, if we kept only this previous date, it was going to come out as the date and the time. That is why we need to format it to give us the previous date in this format. All right, so I hope you understand this formula very well. So let's just commit that. Let's begin building the KPIs using that formula, okay? So now we want to get the transaction volume, which is like the yesterday's own, right? So I'm just going to put this. This is transaction volume for current date, because remember we still have the previous date, measure. So now this is the transaction volume for the current date. We're just basically asking it to count the rows just with what we did in our transaction volume. Is the same thing we are doing. But right now, what we want is we're just going to put this transaction date. We filtered by getting transaction dates of the particular date we wanted. If you did not watch the previous video, please watch it so you would understand what this particular word is doing. The previous one was more like manual, while we are automating this one. In the previous video, we had where transaction table is equals to, and we kept a particular date, which was 2023-09-28. But right now, we don't want to put any dates. We're automating it by using this previous business date. Now, this previous business day, we look, okay, we're in Tuesday, so that means I should be getting the data set for Monday, right? Now, when we bring in this previous business day, it comes in as a date. So we have to format it using a value. So this is why this value is here, okay? So let's hit enter. Now we're just going to come here. We don't have any data sets we don't have any data in for today. So I'm just going to add data for today, okay? So today is 18th, right? This is 17th, and today is 9th. So I have to add data for yesterday. So let me just add like 4 to 5 rows or 6. So I'm going to come here and just pick some. We're going to pick like 8 rows or what. So we have to change this transaction ID because it's the primary key. So we'll make this 19. We'll just make them unique 20, 21. Let's connect this. Then let us change the database and let's run it again. Okay, so now we can see 7 rows affected. Let's go back to our Power BI environment. Now we have data for yesterday. So we're just going to bring in our transaction volume and bring it in here, and you can see 7. So we can just come here and rename this for the video and just say transaction volume. Then the next thing we want to do is to get the value, which is like the same way we did the other one. Let's come here and let's get a new quick measure that measures the current day. So now we don't need the normal value. We want what? The current day value. So I'm just going to paste this, and this says total value for our current day. We are doing the same thing. We are using the sum x, and we're going to filter. Normally we filtered with the date, which was 29/08/2023, but right now we are filtering with previous business day, and this is how we will do the debit value as well. Okay, let's hit enter. It's going to go to the total value, and we can see that the total value for everything there was 1.69 million. All right, so let's just quickly format this so we can use the Naira sign. So now we'll just format this place and leave it as total value. So we're doing the same thing for the credit value. Get the measure. The same thing really. If you have not watched the previous video, please check the link in the description box below. I think you should start from that particular video so that you can understand what we are doing here, okay? So we can see we're just going to put in this credit value for the current date, and we can see, whoa, we had quite a number of credit value, 1.14 million. All right, so let's just format this and use the Naira sign. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for the debit value. As you can see, we are filtering. We want to see the debit and for the previous business day. So let's hit enter. Let's also format this with the Naira sign. So we'll get the debit value current 549. So let us work on this. I'm renaming this field. Let us work on renaming this field as well. Okay, so lastly for this KPI is our net value. Just like in our previous net value, it was total credit minus total debit, right? So for this one, we're also going to have credit value minus debit value, but we're just using the current day credit value minus debit value. Okay, so if we run this thing and we get a negative sign, we can decide that, oh, we don't want our stakeholders to be seeing a negative sign. If you don't want them to see a negative sign, you can use a function you call absolute, ABS, right? This is the function. Once you use this ABS, it's going to remove every negative sign and it becomes an absolute positive number, okay? But we don't want that here. So let us format this using the Naira sign. Net value. So you can see the net value is 580 something thousand. Let's just clean this thing up. I want these ones in one decimal place. If you're still watching this video, it means you're gaining value of it. So please subscribe and like this video. That is a way of encouraging me to keep pushing out content like this. And tell me in the comment section if you've subscribed. Thank you all so much. Now let's get back to learning. So I'll just rename this visual. Now we are done with these KPIs, right? The next thing we want to do now is we want to get our top 2 customers, which we got that previous time. So now to do that, let's just get a table and drag this in. So for this table, we want to see the customer name. We want to see the total, no, not the total value, the total current value. So at this point, you can actually remove this total value, debit value, net value, because we're not using that anymore. So after the total value, we're going to get the credit value. Then we're going to get the debit value and the net value for current date. Okay, so what you're just going to do is rename this for the visual that is here. Rename it as just total value and whatnot. So I'm quickly going to format this table and just want to remove the total. I want to turn off the totals. Then put on some vertical lines. Let's make the column header bold. All right, so that is it. Now, this is quite a lot of it. We want just the top two positive net value, positive. So for that, we're going to come to our net value. We're going to filter off this net value. I want to show items when the value is greater than 0, because we don't have quite a lot here. We just have 7. So obviously, we're going to see when the value is greater than what? Let's just say 0. And we're going to apply this filter. And we can see the items that are more than 0. Okay, so now I'm just going to copy and paste this table, and we're going to push it to this other side, so we do the same thing. So here, what we want are just the customers with the negative net value. The next thing we want to do is we want to automate these writings, right? Now, we don't want to have to come back here every day to say, okay, yesterday was 1.6, today is 1.7, and we're going to be writing it. No, we want it automated. So we want to automate this word here, which will tell us if this one reduced from 0.6 to 0.4, it should write reduced. If it increased from 650 to 665, it should write what? Increased. All right. So the first thing I want to do for that is to create a previous business day, because this date that we are looking at is not this particular date. This date is today. This one is yesterday's date, which this analysis is for, right? So the previous day, today, that is Tuesday, this analysis is for Monday. That means the previous day, which will be Friday, is going to be this one. Okay, so let's create a date for that. We're just going to go to our measures table, and we're going to get a new measure. So what we're saying is we want the previous business day minus 1, right? So that's how we are going to get our own previous date. And just as we did that time, we formatted it to this day, month, and year. Okay, so let's just hit enter. Now we're just going to get a box. Let's copy and paste this. Now this box is where we're going to get our 2 previous day. Now you can see our previous day was 17th. Our previous day was 17th, and this analysis is for the 18th, which was yesterday. Our previous day is 17th. So I'm just going to remove this colored value, and I'm going to reduce this a lot so it fits. So now, rather than have all of this, I'm just going to the previous day. I'm just going to drag this previous day here. This is our 2 previous days. So we're going to get our previous day, which is here, previous day, as you can see. So what we're going to be doing now is as you can see, we are saying the total value increased from so on this day, which was like 2 days before, to whatever it is on this day. Total value increased from what was yesterday's value, right? What was yesterday's total value? So let's get that. So let's create a measure. And this is for the 2 days previous. Total value for the 2 days previous, which is also the same way we got our total value, but we are putting previous business day -1, right? So we're going to hit enter. We're just going to put our measure here so we can see what the previous business days measure. Let me just try to format this right now, make it transparent. I am also going to go turn off digital label. So this is our previous day. So later on, I will arrange everything so it fits. So for our current day is our normal. Our current day is for this normal one that we have. So to get our current day, we'll go to total value current day. And you see that we had this previously and we have this today. All right. So this is basically what we are going to do for all of them. So right now I'm going to get the two previous credit value. That's the 2 previous days for the credit value, because now we have the total value. So let me just get the credit value. Okay, so now we're just going to paste in our measure, which is the same thing as what we used before, just that we're using -1 right here. Okay, so let's hit enter. Now let us try to copy and paste this. Let's copy and paste this so you can see this was what the credit value was. So there was no debit value. All right, let's see what the debit value. So debit value, or rather credit value for the current day. Today's credit value is 1.14. So let's look at the debit value. We're just going to go create another measure. Which is the same thing, just that we are minusing 1 for the previous business day. Hit enter. And now we want to copy and paste. So let's copy and paste for the debit. So we can see there is no credit value for that. There is no debit value for that day. So let's just go switch things up a bit. This is the day on 17th. Let's make 1 credit value. Let's make this 2. And let us make this debit. Okay, let us run this and see. All right, so let's go look at our database and see. All right, now we have some values. As you can see, you can always tweak it once it is, connected. Now we can see we have some debit value and our credit has increased for sure. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to get our net value. So our net value is quite easy, just the same way we got our net value for this one is how we're getting it. So let's go create a new measure. So this minus this. If you don't want it to come as a if you don't want it to have any negative sign, you can remember you can use the function absolute to do that. But I'm just going to hit enter. And let me see what the total value is. Then let me look at today's own. This is the 2 days before. Now let's look at yesterday's net value so we can see net value. Okay, so let's look at the debit value for the debit value. All right, so this is basically everything, right? We're still going to arrange it. Now, the next thing we want to change is this increase. What if there's a decline? Like now we can see this one, there's actually a decline from this number to this number, right? For this one, there's an increase from this number to this number. We also want it to change automatically without us having to be there to type it, right? So we need to apply some formulas in order for it to change automatically. Okay, so for that we are going to create a measure called total value increase and decrease. So it's just basically to put this text. If so thing is more, you use increase. So I'm going to paste my measure here, and this measure is just saying we're creating a variable called previous value. And this previous value is what? It is this particular variable we have created, which is 2 days prior, the total value of 2 days prior, right? Which is this. And we're creating another one called total value for current date, which is this total value for current date, which is this particular one here. And this is it. So we're saying we're going to return if total value for current date is greater than total value for 2 days before. That means if this one is greater than this one, return increase, else decline, right? So if this is greater than this, let the text be the total value increased. But if this is greater than this, it is going to write what? Declined. So this is basically what this is saying. We've created these variables and we are saying if total value for current day is less than 2 days prior, that's the 2 days before, then it should be what? It should be written as increase, else it should be written as decline. Okay, so let's hit enter. So now let me copy and paste this card. So we can just put that here and see for ourselves. So this is total value increase and decrease. And we can see that this increased, right? So let's test for the one that actually decreased. Okay, let's test for the net value. The net value actually decreased, okay? So let's just write a new measure. Let's test this net value. So guys, this is our measure. We are saying we created a previous value called to previous net value, just like we did to get this, and our current value, which is this. And we said if this is greater than this, then we should write increase, else we should write what? Decline. Okay, so we're just going to hit enter and we're going to see about that. So let's just get our net value, increase and decrease, and put it here. And we can see that there has been a decline in net value from so on so to this date. So that is basically what it is. So let's get our measure for our credit value and debit value. So guys, now we have our credit value increase and decrease, and we also have our debit value increase and decrease. So what we're going to do now is just to change this whole thing so that every single thing fits. All right. Okay, you guys. Okay, you guys, I am making this a mini statement because it is so hard trying to fix this. So I'm just going to make this a mini statement. That is, there is an increase in, then I'm going to add the value, and I'm going to say from so. I think I'm just even going to give this some space and put something value. All right. And I'm just going to say from value from. So I think this will save a lot of time. It will save a lot of time because trying to fit those things in little by little is so hard. Okay, so I'm just going to hit enter. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, let me remove this and let us see here. This makes a lot of sense. So there's an increase in, so obviously total cannot fit here. So I'm just going to increase the size so it fits. All right. So that's what we'll do. Hi guys, so something like this is what we're going to have. There is an increase in total value from this value on this day to this value on this day. This is it. So that's just basically how you would get this.